The Articulate Coven is the original, unofficial podcast and fan community for Anne Rice's Interview with the Vampire and Anne Rice's Immortal universe from AMC and AMC+. Welcome to The Articulate Coven. We're your hosts. I'm Joel.
I'm Ashley.
And we are The Articulate Coven. We are the unofficial fan podcast and fan community for Anne Rice's Vampire Chronicles, Interview with the Vampire, The Mayfair Witches, all the rest of her works, and of course the series brought to you by AMC and AMC+, like Interview with the Vampire, which we're currently covering. Our rewatch is coming to an end, Ashley, tonight with episode 7 of season 1. Yeah, there's no rewatch of Mayfair in our immediate future, but I did think to myself, there's probably going to be several months at least between season 2 of Interview and season 2 of Mayfair.
I know.
So we might get there eventually. It'll be much more different than this rewatch has been, I would imagine.
We probably won't be as excited, and we might hate it from the beginning even more than we did the last time. But I mean, I'm sure we have to do our due diligence and all of that rot.
So I said on this show once upon a time, Ashley, that I wasn't going to watch any more trailers because I wanted to
you lied
by season 2. I'm wondering
you lied.
How many more times are they going to make me a liar by putting out really, really interesting trailers? So there was a new trailer this week. It's on AMC. It's on their YouTube, and it's all over their social media accounts as well. But I thought we'd go through and talk about that a little bit first. People so enjoyed our discussion of the last, the Rollin Jones trailer. And this one's got a few things in particular that I thought clarified things from the Rollin Jones trailer. I would not be surprised to find out in the behind the scenes making of that this was literally made in response. Like maybe these are the notes from the studio on what he left out or what they wanted to see or whatever.
Right. This is what we need to round it out.
Yeah. So right at the opening shot, by the way, is it's the Theater Coven on motorcycles caravanning through the city, and it looked to me absolutely as a choice to mirror the opening shot, or one of the opening shots of this first season, as the cars are making their way into Dubai across the bridge.
Yes,
if it's shot from above, they're moving at a slower pace because of the distance you're shooting from. It very much, I feel like, tracks. You're seeing these things mirror each other, which again I think feeds into the idea that some of these memories are washed over. When you think about the science of it,
yeah,
every time you recall a memory and you tell a story about it, or even if you just pull it up in your mind, but when you recall a memory, there are parts of it that are blank and your brain fills it in.
Yeah.
So if you recall a memory, hundreds of times over your life, it's what is it, Theseus's ship or whatever, it's been replaced.
It changes a little bit every time, yeah. And our memory is such an interesting thing because and the same part of our brain that processes memory and emotion also processes scent and smell too, which is something really interesting that I always find so fascinating, and how smells will trigger memories and things like that. And I can only imagine, like, having lived for 500 plus years, what kind of shit you would flash back to because of like a whiff of like dirt in the wrong place, or the smell of like night blooming jasmine and things like that. It's just incredible the way our brains work.
So I wonder, how long are they going to be in Paris before Armand introduces himself? In the opening scene of the trailer, they're speaking at a cafe, and Louis is describing himself as the reticent vampire of the 9th arrondissement. I mean, it feels like they've been there a while at that point, doesn't it?
Well, and I feel like Claudia seems to have been there long enough to like fall in love with the city, and and to be excited. Like, I love it here. It's different, It's I like this, to have a like set opinion about it.
I don't know what the argument would be for why they haven't stumbled upon the theater, or why Armand. I mean, obviously Armand would have noticed them. Why would he watch them for so long? And if they did, some of the things that happened with Claudia, I wonder if that. I don't know. I'm not sure how that's going to play out, but it feels like we might get more Paris, like maybe a full Paris episode before we meet Armand, which is not what I expected originally. But anyway, I love here, we always try to call it out when they use things straight out of the books. Armand refers to the petite beauty. I love that.
Yes.
often refers to her that way in the books. So that was a nice little touch for me.
It's so mildly threatening,
Right?
It's just
yeah. Well, on the one hand, it makes it clear to Louis that he knows about her. Like she's not with him when he's confronted. And so it's like, yeah, I know who you are, and I know the one that travels with you, and I know where she is right now. Don't worry about it. You guys be nice and do what I tell you to. Yeah, it absolutely is a little bit of an overt threat. Here's another one that was super thready. Armand says the Coven has grand designs for her. Talking about
God,
Claudia.
yeah, that just turned my stomach because, well, I think, and if I'm remembering correctly, in the books, there's a law that you do not turn children into vampires. Is that a thing that I made up, or is that like a real thing?
No, you're absolutely right. It's a thing, and the idea there is that you don't make a vampire who is not self-sufficient. Right.
Exactly.
You don't make someone, in the book, especially, she's, as we said previously, she's 5 years old. And so it's like she can't even wander about in public without causing a real issue. And
she needs adult supervision.
Right. And she's physically not strong enough to overcome probably even a handful of humans, honestly, in the book. Whereas, this Claudia, we've seen her take on a whole house full of humans in this episode, for instance.
She has a lot more
I
agency.
think she'd be fine. Yeah, so I think it's going to come down to the killing of the Maker.
Yes.
Which well, we're going to get to that in a minute too, but I don't know exactly how that's going to play out either. I'm not sure what the argument is here that she needs to die or how it's going to play out. But yes, in the books, it is very much the Coven turns against her from the very beginning for her existence at all.
Right.
And
just her mere existence is offensive.
Yeah. How long are we going to let that go? And can it be excused in any way? And it's not. Here's the big reason why I wanted to talk about this trailer. We see a fight between Lestat and Louis. Looks a lot like the house in New Orleans. Is this the fight? Do we revisit the fight from episode 5?
And do we see it in an entirely different way?
Yes, exactly. Is it a whole nother look on that? That is, obviously it's my hope as a Lestat stan, but I genuinely, I think it's what's going to happen too. And as a matter of fact, I'll get to it a little bit later. I'm going to save this new theory actually for the end of this episode's discussion because it ties in to the end of the season 1 finale. But watching this trailer, I've got an idea that I think would be very, very clever and would satisfy maybe everybody. Big explosion happening behind. It looks like Lestat, but I wouldn't swear to it. I think we're going to see some of the French Revolution. I think that's Lestat coming out of a house. We also see, by the way, a red fur cloak on Lestat. He's on the
Lestat,
ground.
Yeah.
And then the red fur cloak is on him. He's like screaming on the ground. I thought at first maybe it was the Magnus attack, but if you slow it down, he's got fangs already.
Yeah, he looks vampy. He looked vampy to me. He already looked like a vampire there to me.
Yeah. Is this when Armand drops him? Is this when Armand forces himself to be drunk from and then drops him? They might fix the whole fucking fight this season, Ashley.
I love your wish. I hope it's true.
Okay, in the next scene, I had to slow this one down too because someone is attacking Louis from behind, and I was like, okay, is it Armand? Is it Lestat? What is this? It's a wraith. It's a ghoul attacking Louis there, and then almost immediately after that, we see the old woman that I mentioned from Rollins' trailer.
Yeah.
I thought this was like maybe the queen of the Coven, and this is Armand and Lestat's first entry story when Lestat breaks the Coven under Les Innocents, but it's not. This is Eastern Europe because you see her from the front, and Claudia and Louis are behind her. So this is, I'm fairly certain, going to be Eastern Europe. Now she might be like a regular vampire who is the font of all these wraiths that they fight,
right,
or something like that. I don't know, but yeah. Anyway,
I think that's super interesting and exciting, and I think that might be how we pass some of the time in the first episode, getting us, if we do in fact not meet Armand right away, I think we'll get a little bit more of the travel of the journey and all of that. I think that's probably how they're going to take up some of that time.
Well, okay, you got to think too, first episode, we're going to have to deal with the revelations of the end of this season 1 for modern day Daniel, Louis, and Armand. Right?
Yes.
So I would not be surprised if you get like 20, 22, 24 minutes of modern story and then you only really get about 20-25 minutes of Eastern Europe. And by the end of episode 1, I bet we're in Paris. Now, then I would not be surprised too if we get almost a whole second episode of the show before we meet Armand. Like the entry to Armand might be the end of episode 2. And
we definitely left our guys real cliffhung at the end of this.
Oh, for real. but my guess is probably episode 3, maybe episode 4, we get an Armand's voice episode, and that's when we'll get a lot of Lestat for this season. And I don't think they're going to go that deep into the season before they give him to us. So that's my guess, is that it'll be like 2 episodes without Armand, and then we'll get the actual entry to the Coven as told by Armand, and that will be also where we see, some of his, or the beginnings at least of his story with Lestat. Anyway, fascinating trailer. Really shook some things up for me, and I had to go and apologize to a couple of people on YouTube. Somebody had said that it was, hey, I didn't think that was the Coven Queen. I think that's a ghoul. And I was like, you might be right, but I think I'm right. She was really dressed up fancy. No, that's a ghoul. They were totally right.
No, she's definitely a ghoul.
Yeah. So anyway. All right, that's the trailer.
Look, it's all speculation at this point. None of us know what the hell's happening.
But isn't it? It's so much fun to have speculate. And I'll tell you this too. Okay, I am super excited to be able to speculate about this series. We're not going to get another novel, folks. I mean, very likely. And so,
unless Christopher decides to write one, we're not going to get it.
But even then, that's good. Even if it's great, it'll be controversial, and half the fan base will hate it, and will declaim it as not count. I mean, look at what they did with Brian Herbert's works and Frank Herbert's works, and so half the fan base digs them and half the fan base hates them, and that'll be the case no matter whether they're good or bad. So my point is, this adaptation gives people like us who have read these books, a bunch of times, and a way to access this story as if it were new again, because it is new. Simple changes like this being a second interview. We've got a grown-up Daniel who lived a full human life. That doesn't happen in the novels. Right.
And the time period's totally different, too. Yeah. Our time periods are completely different.
Exactly. All of our characters are born at slightly different times,
Yeah.
It's exciting to not know exactly how it's going to play out, and yet be confident in the creative team that it's going to play out in a very satisfying way, as it has so far. So, bully for us.
Yeah, when I did this rewatch of this episode, I watched most of the behind the scenes episode that they did, and it was just such a nice reminder about how much this creative team loves these stories, it's just and have such great respect and love for the source material. The actors love the source material, and I think that's intrinsically what the big difference is between Interview and the Mayfair series.
I agree 100%. It all comes down to one creative team knows what the hell they're doing, and one creative team does not.
Yeah.
Ashley, let's get into this week's episode. It's The Thing Lay Still, directed by Alex Ostrander, written by Roland Jones, Anne Rice, and Ben Philippe. And what a fucking episode.
Man, what's really great about this, and we've talked about this a little bit in the Facebook group, just how we feel like this second season's going to be, it's not going to be as romancy and lovey as the first season was. It's not going to be as super sexy vampires. It's going to be kind of horror driven, and I'm so excited about that. This episode is gory, bloody, messy, smart. It's so smart. I love how much agency Claudia has in this episode, how strong she comes across, because it is a very different version of her than I hold in my mind sometimes.
I agree. So can I tell you, Claudia is my favorite thing about this episode?
She's fantastic in this.
This is not... Here's the interesting thing. This episode goes towards the bottom of my personal list of favorites for the season. For a handful of reasons, and I'm going to talk about a few of them when we get through the episode. But Claudia is actually, I think, my favorite part, other than Sam's monologue at the end.
Yes. Oh, she's fantastic in this episode, and she's so and again, it's like what we talked about, the cheats. We go back and we see her planning her plan, basically, and and you see how she wins this chess game against Lestat, and it's so fucking brilliant because Lestat thinks he's got her. He thinks he's got her figured out. He thinks he has tricked her, and he is the master. You can't beat me at my own game, and it's just such a crazy ass ride.
I love right from the very beginning, Louis gets to just ask the question of the episode. It could be done, but could it be done by us? To him?
Yeah. Well, and she knows she can't trust Louis to be the driving force in this because she tells him straight to his face, you're in love with him. You'll fall back in love with him in a second. You will get very distracted during this process. So I'm not really going to let you in on all my schemes.
Can I just say, teenage Joel would have really appreciated this information. If you want to get eaten by vampires, become a traveling salesman. That's your
no
ticket.
Shit. The encyclopedia guy fucking killed me.
I loved all of it. I loved that whole scene. Honestly, it's very cruel, but it's the kind of cruelty that we actually do see from Lestat in the novels, and it's performative. Like we've talked about the meal before Daniel in one of the earlier episodes. This is. I mean, he's doing it for a reason. He's draining him so that he can drink from glasses and whatnot. But also, he's doing it because he knows it bothers Louis. Right. It's still, even now, this whole episode is, for someone who's ever lived in a bad relationship, this episode would be as triggering, I think, almost as the domestic violence from earlier. Well,
because everything, you can feel all the tension. Everything is like, it's like a finger on a trigger. Like at any point, anything could happen that's going to set one of them off and make everything very uncomfortable. And this whole opening scene just is that to a T to me. It's just so tense and so uncomfortable. Everybody's uncomfortable. Nobody wants to be there. It's not. And I think it is important that we continue to see Lestat in a way that would make them want to be free of him. We have to see that. We have to continue to see that. They can't stop pushing that because that's that's the reason why they go this far.
Yes. Yeah. You need to feel, just as you said last episode, I think, that if Louis wants to protect Claudia, then this relationship has to go. That's the place that you need to put Louis into to make this all work and make sense.
Because once he wouldn't let her leave, that changed everything. Him not letting her leave.
I like that we get a those who must be kept reference. If you're not a book reader, we won't spoil anything for you, but this is absolutely an Easter egg for the next couple of seasons. And I think we're going to get some things in season 2 that maybe move that aspect of the storyline along towards the third novel.
I think so too.
I think we're going to go there faster.
Is driving towards Queen of the Damned. We are. I think going to kind of speed along a little quickly and to get us to that to get us to that next place.
Yeah, I mean, realistically, if you take out the historical section of the Vampire Lestat, if you just look at if you don't take all of his autobiography, and I don't think the series is going to ditch his autobiography. I think what it's going to do, though, is sprinkle it in through seasons 2 and 3 and probably some of 4 as well. And I really think Queen of the Damned is going to be a season 3, season 4 storyline with Lestat's backstory alongside, probably some other people we're going to talk about eventually, too. Anyway, I like that though that they're hinting, hey, we're going places. We know, we've read all these books. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, we know what's next. Don't worry. We know what's next.
Yeah. Again, Lestat always knows how to cut somebody verbally. You irritate me. Your very presence irritates me.
Irritates me.
Yeah.
And I don't know, is that line, I know that line's pulled straight from the 94 film, but I don't know if it's
I believe
in
it
the
is
book
straight from
not.
the novel as well. Yes,
yeah,
you're right. It is so absolutely a Tom Cruise Lestat line, but I'm pretty sure they pulled it from the novel. It's a good line.
It is a great line. I mean, it just anything he can do to diminish her is just. I mean, he's game for it. He does not care for her.
So I mentioned earlier that there's a handful of moments in this episode that I think play poorly, and we're just honestly mistakes, and so this is one of the reasons why it's kind of on the lower end of the season for me as far as like quality of episodes. One of those moments is in the movie theater when Lestat entrances the guy to slap himself. It's funny, I guess, but like it's playing fast and loose with the vampire powers, and I think, and we're going to get to this when we talk about Pandora in a few weeks, the novel. I'm super excited to see ancient vampires on TV. Yeah. And one of the things that I hope the series does is maintain a little constraint on vampiric powers so that you have a few things to pull out of your, bag when it comes time to show truly ancient ones. And it's not just the way that they look. It is also the level of power and influence on their environment that they can.
Well, even Lestat doesn't give away all his tricks right off the bat.
Well, that's true.
They need to not do that. I completely agree with that. We've got to be able to, like, you can't go so far that you can't top it. You have to be able to, we have to be able to show what makes these ancients special and why their blood is stronger, why their existence matters.
Well, and why they're so terrifying. They're like walking nuclear bombs, and you need to feel that, I guess.
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
Tom motherfucking Anderson rolls in, my man.
Tom, our man Tom, well, I guess it's not new anymore. He hasn't talked to them in what he says 17 years.
I think he says 14. It's been it's either 14 or 17. Yeah, it's almost 2 decades.
It's been almost 2 decades, and he's got his little X scar on his face.
I think I said this in our initial viewing too. I wish they'd aged him up a little bit more. Give him a little bit more white hair or a thicker mustache or something, just to make the effect of when he shows the picture a little bit harder, and to also really draw the point right from go on the fact that for us it's been 7 episodes. For him, though, it's been 40 years.
Yeah, it's been half his life.
Yeah. So, but I love him, and he's got so many great lines here. Okay, Louis says, "We're getting out, Tom. Out of New Orleans, but you just got here.
You just got here."
I love it.
And he does this two-tone daddy that you love so much as well.
Yeah, the two-tone daddy line is great. But that one, his joke that you just got here. And if you think about it, okay, I mean, New Orleans is a big city. It always has been, right? So mostly people wouldn't give a damn who's living where in the quarter, and not even in the early 1900s. But for Tom and a handful of others who know the 2 gentlemen who moved into that home and were living there before they went into seclusion,
right?
It's got to be fucking eerie knowing that there are 2 people who the few times you've seen them, that's what I'm saying. Like the few times you've seen them around town, they haven't aged. Yeah. Also, Tom would know, for instance, that Louis got a sepulcher. He's got a vault already with his name on it.
Right. Absolutely.
So the fact that they walk into his office and Tom is willing to crack wise with them, I think is pretty cool.
Well, it's just his audacity. I love the audacity of that character. He's so like just a brazen douchebag in the most charming way, and it's fantastic. He's a real delight of that first season. We've been very clear of our enjoyment of him.
Roger and Albert reference too. How did it all happen? They just bribed him. Lestat pulled in, troves of money, bought a new ship for Tom, gave a bunch of, probably greased all the hands and got it done. But his law firm is something that is a through line through the books. Lestat's dealing with lawyers is always funny to me.
Yeah, he's always got someone handling his business. He's got a guy for that,
Well, and his affection for them, I think, is always endearing to me. Like he makes them rich, wealthy people, and he often, like dotes on one particular member of their family or something, and he talks about showering them with extra wealth for their troubles, and I don't know. That is one of those scenes.
And for the discretion.
Well, yes, but like the first time that he finds his banker in the Vampire Lestat novel is a great scene that I hope we get to see play out. But it's also one of those things that it's hard to encapsulate. We talk about talking to our spouse, and she's like, why? I talked to my wife and she's like, why? why do you love this asshole again?
Yeah.
And I'm like, this isn't his novel. You don't know this. But like what I want to point to, honestly, is those scenes with Roger. And so I'm hoping we get to those eventually in Lestat's story. I love that, again, that they're planting seeds here that, Lestat can pull money from anywhere to anywhere.
Absolutely.
Okay. I still think Tom pulling the gay card in his riling Louis up is too much. It pissed me off the first time I watched it. It was unnecessary. I understand now, and I don't think I did on my very first watch, that it literally is that. Tom might not even have any feeling behind those words. He's literally saying it to goad Louis. At this point, he is trying to double dog dare Louis into showing him whatever secret he has. Little do they know. But I feel like I would have done it as a different way.
Right. And there is a level of disdain too.
Yes, no, that's true.
There is a level of disdain there for them that he covers with this like dripping sarcasm. And because he doesn't like these guys. he tolerates them and he's entertained by them and he's curious about them. But he's just as much of an asshole as the rest of these white men trying to screw Louis over, when it came down to it with the fair play.
Well, and the other thing that it occurs to me now, we've talked about in the past, he always has the open hand out for Louis as I'm just your friend, Louis, but also the other hand's got a dagger and he's draining Louis for everything that he can get. But in the intervening time between when he got that scar on his cheek and this episode, Louis and Lestat haven't done anything for him. He hasn't. No. They're not around for him.
They've not done anything for anybody.
Well, yes.
They're just doing their thing, and so they're not of any use to him at this time, which is also, I think, why he's like so...
Yeah, dialed up the disdain.
Yeah, absolutely. And why, too, he's like, there's no way we can make this happen. That's just the most absurd shit you've ever come up with, And then he gets the reminder of how much money and how much power these men seem to have and how alluring that is. You can't help but be curious. I'd want to know how these fucking guys are still alive and how haven't aged. I would go to this party, Joel. I would so go to this party, and my ass would get eaten by these assholes, and that's just how it would go down.
It's very much white people shit.
It is. It is. This is white people shit. This is us. What's in the basement? I'll be right back. This is why none of us. This is why you don't survive the horror film.
Let's acknowledge for a moment the beautiful fucking costumes for the ball. Everybody looks great, but our three leads, Claudia, Louis, and Lestat, look amazing in and out of their wigs and whatnot. But
Claudia's eyes behind her mask,
are
just, frightening. That's something I caught on this watch, just the way her eyes were just so piercing through that mask, and she was so fucking focused and so determined that she was going to win this night.
And I don't think we've called it out at all during our rewatch, but I want to acknowledge too the vampire effects. Everybody has these beautiful supernatural eyes, and yet, preternatural. I forgot this is an Anne Rice show. We got to call it right. Yeah, the preternatural eyes. They don't emanate from a higher power, but they've got these amazing, brilliant eyes. But they're all different, right? They don't look. This isn't Dune. Not everybody gets the spice eyes. This is its own thing, and your natural form is perfected and heightened by the vampiric blood. That's the idea, and so Lestat's eyes are ever more brilliantly blue than they ever could have been, and Louis has these incredible green eyes, and Claudia has these brown eyes that become cat eyes, right? They're like almond or something, and they're just
it's
unbelievable.
Wild. Yeah, and I think there's times too where they dial that effect up when in heightened moments when our vamps are feeling or on the prowl or on the hunt or are figuring out how to fuck with each other the best. And
it's been a while
I think they kind of dial up those effects. You see that those eyes get even more bright, even more intense. But that could just be like me thinking I'm seeing that too.
Well, or lighting too. But I think you're right. And didn't they say, it's been a while since I've seen the behind the scenes featurettes, but didn't they say in one of those that there are multiple series of teeth? They literally do that with the teeth. They have like,
oh yeah, there's different
when they're
sizes.
Biting, they're like full on, and when they're threatening, they're full on. But when they are just existing, they're a certain level, and So I think probably the same is true for the eyes as well. Anyway, excellent work, and again, an example of how this show got screwed on the award season, particularly for costume and design.
Yeah, it really is. It's really disappointing that this team wasn't acknowledged. I mean, I know that there were a lot of shows finishing up this last year, so I could see maybe our actors getting snubbed, but to not acknowledge the production team on this is really disappointing.
Sam's monologue on the balcony, I called it out earlier, but it is just fantastic. And again, this is straight out of the book. I say it's straight out of the book. This is one of those examples of where they took what is in the book. They took the language from the book and adapted it slightly. I think in the book it's Louis that says these things, and it's not directly referencing his and Lestat's relationship. Whereas here, I mean, Lestat is talking about the city, but he's really talking about the two of them.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's really well done. Sam is just, he inhabits this character so well. He really understands a lot of, it seems like there's not a lot of nuance to Lestat, but that isn't true. There's a lot more to this character than the Brat Prince. And even though that's what he wants us to see, and that's what he wants you to see most of the time, that's what Lestat wants to be seen as. But there's so much more to his character than that, which is one of the reasons why, we still give a shit 40 years after this book was written.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. He's a broken boy, hurt people. And Lestat has been hurt in lots of ways by lots of people for a long, long time. Hell, this show gives him an extra 100 years to get hurt before he meets Louis.
Right? Oh, yeah. I mean, and he wants a companion. He wants, that's, and that's something we run into a lot, when he turns Gabrielle and with Nikki, and how much he just wants to be with someone. He does not want to be alone in this world any more than, Louis wants to be alone in this world.
Okay. When we originally watched this show, you and I both talked about the fact that as an adaptation, they changed the fact that in the novel of Interview with the Vampire, there are two separate attacks. This happens in the film version as well. Louis and Claudia conspire to kill Lestat. They do so. They bury him in the swamp, and then he returns. This is in the book and in the movie where we first understand that there's any other vampires. Antoine comes into play, not Antoinette.
Yes. But
it's only after Lestat's been quote-unquote killed once.
Yeah.
He comes back to exact vengeance and rein in his worrisome fledglings, and they fend off his attack, burn down the house with him in it, and that's the end of Lestat to Louis and Claudia's mind. That's when they escape to Europe. Here, they compact it all down into one attack, basically, and have them killing him and then abandoning the city right away.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, based on the fact that the new trailer shows us that we're going to re-see the fight in episode 5.
Potentially, yes.
Or, yeah, probably. I wonder if one of the things that Louis is remembering in the Roland Jones trailer, one of the things that we hear right at the very top is, that is the way it happened. I didn't think so at the time, but yeah. I think one of the things that Louis is mourning as he begins to remember everything is that not only did he attack Lestat that once, but that he killed him twice, in his mind at least. And the obvious thinking would be that there was a second attack in New Orleans, right? No, my friend. I think what happens is Lestat, because again, in the Roland Jones trailer, I said there's a scene, it looks like Louis and Claudia are on stage in a quote-unquote trial, and Lestat is walking up the aisle out of the theater, or away from the stage in the theater. I think Lestat comes to Paris and challenges or accuses our pair and is, vindicated, and they're put on trial. I think when Louis attacks the theater At the end of this, spoiler warning for the book, folks.
Yeah.
When he attacks the theater. I mean, you've seen the 94 movie at this point, I'm sure.
I mean, if you haven't,
yeah, what are you doing?
What are you doing with your life?
We're going to talk about that in a couple of weeks, by the way. I'll get there in a minute. When that happens, though, I think Lestat may be in the theater, and I think Louis burns the theater down, and in his mind, at least,
he's
kills
killed
Lestat.
him again.
Yes, I think he's killed Lestat again, and I think that's the way that we're going to get both of these things, and I think we're going to see that the violence in the relationship is not as one-sided as it appears so far. Louis swings at Lestat a few times in season 1 as it played out, but nothing to the level of violence like we see Lestat perpetrate on Louis. I'm putting 2 and 4 together here and coming up with 8, I know, but anyway, I wonder if we're not going to get a second attack and it's actually going to be in Paris this time.
I think that's right on track. I honestly do. I think that's a brilliant way to do it and to raise the stakes higher. You know, because Lestat is there.
So in
is
the
he
book,
not in the
book, Louis never knows that Lestat is there. It only comes out later to Louis that Lestat showed up to the cub because he comes and asks for Armand's blood to repair him.
Because he needs to finish healing.
And in the novels, that comes out in the Vampire Lestat novel. He talks about it, and Armand talks about it later in his book, etc. But in the original novel, and here's what it comes down to. I think Anne changed her mind on that, right? Like it didn't play out as that way originally for her, and Lestat becomes such a bigger part. She's like, well, he probably would have been one of the reasons why that happened, et cetera, et cetera. But here's my thing: if he's not dead, is it a killable offense? Like, can you?
Right.
What are you putting them on trial for? They just had a fight.
But I guess it's the intent. It's the intent. What they in their minds they killed him.
Yes.
At least in Claudia's, and had the audacity to plan it. And go about it so brilliantly. So we find out too, this is one of my favorite twists in this episode, that the reason why Claudia hasn't been talking to Louis with the mind gift as much is because she knows that Antoinette has been turned and is listening.
I love this reveal. It's like
I do too.
It's like a Columbo episode
brilliant.
Or something, right?
It's like the end of The Usual Suspects.
Yes.
You're like, holy shit, like she has played them both so hard, and it is the most brilliant thing. And it goes back even to when she tries to leave, and she tells him, "You should have let that train go, Uncle, Uncle Les."
And that must have been when she realized it, right? Like, how did Lestat know that I was leaving?
That I was there.
He can't hear my thoughts. How can he track me? Et cetera, et cetera.
Louis wouldn't have told him. Louis wouldn't have told him, and he can't read Louis. So, yeah, it's fucking brilliant. That has to be when she figures it out, and then we know she's already tracked she's already tracked Antoinette once, right? Yeah.
She's the one that proved to Louis that she was still alive on the other side of the river or whatever,
and that they were carrying on with their affair.
Yeah, exactly. So speaking of, let's just acknowledge that, like, the gamesmanship, and Claudia does a good job of this in the 94 film as well. It's just much more truncated, but the gamesmanship for Claudia here to be, we talk about 3D chess, like, she's doing it, boy. And to play Louis in this way too. Like, Louis knows she's not letting him in on everything, but he thinks it's for X reason, it's really for Y reason, and that way she can let everything come to its fruition. It's fantastic.
Because Lestat's like so fucking pleased with himself.
That he had him
I'm going to make you drink this fucking shitty blood, and you're going to die. How about that, sis? And and it's just, it's so brilliant. And the fact that she uses Tom
when he vomits
to poison him is just the best.
When Lestat vomits, the look on Sam's face is so priceless.
brilliant. He's just like, oh, the fuck. And I'm
the whole time.
Yes, the whole time. Yes, Sally Field, the whole damn time. Yes, exactly. And it's so, and I'm just like, he's so sure of himself that he doesn't taste it, because he bites that guy, and he tastes that he has cancer in his blood. Like should be able to taste this poison. And he's just so sure of himself, he doesn't realize it.
Well, the other thing that occurred to me, though, on this viewing is Lestat had talked himself into not 1 day of fasting, not 2 days of fasting, 3 nights of fasting before the party. And Tom is the first blood that he drinks. So he's literally
like
swallowing
starving.
it whole. I mean, think about, I joke with my 16-year-old all the time, hey, how was dinner? He's like, oh, it was great. I'm like, did you taste any of it? Because you unhinged your jaw and you shoved it in whole, for process. I assume he's like a cow and he's got like a cud thing going on. He chews it up later. I don't know. But the point is, though, when you swallow like that, he absolutely would miss the fine. It's not like he's swilling it around and looking for the tannins.
You're right. Yeah, you're right. He's not. This isn't like a nuanced kill. This is a feast. This is a bloody, gory feast. And once again, we are in the situation where our vampires are making quite a mess. And we know that Anne's vampires are much more fastidious than this. But also, they're putting on such a show to scare the shit out of these people, and it's done so well. It's so scary and fun, like, because I like horror so much as a genre. Like, I just get kind of gleeful and giddy and start giggling at it, because it's just wild. The bloodbath that is this episode. Well, it's really getting our minds set for season 2.
Yeah, absolutely. You're right on that. There's going to be more of this in season 2. It might not be the whole season, but there's plenty of this to come. The other thing, though, that I thought about with that scene earlier in the episode, Louis makes reference right when he and Lestat are dancing and they kiss. He makes reference to the fact that many stories were told about that bloody night in New Orleans, or something like that terrible night in New Orleans, but not about the last hour of our party. And it occurred to me, because the whole house doesn't burn down like it does in the novel at that point, all those bodies, like, they left that. Like, the house looked like that when they left, or mostly like that anyway. There were bodies.
I mean, they burned the bodies.
Yeah, well, the only ones they burned were Antoinette's, and then they put Lestat's in a trunk and threw it away. But like, all the humans would have just been left hanging around the mansion. And honestly, like, what better calling card to tell people, don't worry about where we went. Be glad we're gone.
Yeah, we're gone. We're gone. Don't worry. We left town. Oh, it is. And the disposal of Lestat in this way is really brilliant too. And Daniel calls Louis out on it. He was like, you threw him away. He's gonna go to the dump where there's giant rats to eat. Like, and you did that knowing full well what you had done.
Well, and that was the first thing this time that I was like, what if that's the beginning of the subject? And by the way, this might literally be like personal blocks. Like, what if he asked Armand to take memories away or something like that? That's what occurs to me. Like, he had self-pity or self-loathing, and he told Armand, I can't live like this. And so Armand said, well, we could get rid of it and you could live without it. How about that? But anyway, that moment where Louis trying to talk himself out of it, and he's angry with Daniel as he marches away. Like, no, I didn't let him live. No, I didn't leave him to feed himself back to health.
Right.
As if he hadn't.
I didn't leave him in a trunk that could open from the inside.
As if he hadn't thought about it in the 70 years since or whatever, like.
Right.
First of all, we're fairly certain now he saw him again at least the once.
Right.
So that's
right.
I'm thinking there's another, which, by the way, for people like us who are looking for this to be a loving vampiric relationship at some point in the future, great way to dangle us again, guys. Have him smack Lestat one more time at the end of season 2. That'll be excellent.
just to twist that little knife a little bit harder for us. They put the fun in dysfunction, you know?
Man, excellent season. This is going to be something that I think it'll be interesting to see Delaney's performance. And I wonder whether Bailey's season 1 performance will be like just a trivia blurb in the future, or whether it'll be the kind of thing where you really have a part of the fan base that goes back and like, well, you really got to get season 1 Claudia to get the real deal, or
right.
Whatever, or you really got to get season 2 Claudia to get it was a major step
we can
up.
Be sure that regardless, people will be assholes. And there's one thing that's guaranteed: there will be some assholery out there about it.
I think I just found my title for this episode. I appreciate you that. Good job, Ashley.
Anytime, friend.
There will be some assholery. All right, so quick heads up. Let's talk about what's coming next. So next,
okay.
So we're done with Rewatch episodes, and we've got a few weeks here between now and the May 12th launch of season 2 of Interview with the Vampire. So here's what Ashley and I are going to do. Next week, we're going to bring you a commentary track of that 94 movie that we've discussed several times in this one, Interview with the Vampire. Now, we did an episode about the movie Once Upon a Time, and so that's why we're not doing that again. We've talked about the movie already at length, but this way we can watch through it together. We're going to talk through every moment. We'll highlight, interesting shots for you. So you'll be able to download this thing. We'll tell you when we're ready to press play. You can sync it up and you can enjoy the movie with us anytime you want to in the future. Then
it'll be ridiculous.
Because I'm a real glutton for punishment, we're going to do the same thing the week after that with the Queen of the Damned film from the early 2000s.
Yes.
I have all sorts of affection for that 94 film. I have very little affection for this Queen of the Damned movie. I don't even like the music that much, which a lot of people do. I understand.
That's a very hot take, Joel. A lot of people are very passionate about that soundtrack.
I know. And listen, I will say, and we'll talk about this, of course, when we get to that commentary track as well, but it was a choice, right? They took a swing, and I do applaud that. And I am hopeful that even if it's not the exact thing that I imagined when I read these novels, as a kid, if they make a bold choice and they stick to it, I'm going to be happy when we get to Lestat's Rockstar era, even if it's not my bag, baby. So we got 2 commentary tracks coming, and then what we're going to do after that, Ashley? We're going to talk a novel.
We're going to talk about my favorite, Pandora. I'm so excited to finally talk about this novel. I love it so much.
Man.
It's such a good read.
Okay.
It's so fascinating, and the history in it's so fun. I nerd out. I can't wait.
I'm like 2 hours in to my reread right now. I'm doing the audiobook this time.
Are you doing the audiobook?
Yeah, I am. And
it's so good,
it is
right?
Very, very good.
Oh.
But I will also say, this is I've probably only read that novel once. So this is probably only my second time to read the whole thing. And I did not retain almost any of this. I'm only in her early mortal life still at this point. And it's feeling like a whole new thing. So I'm excited to talk about that with you too.
It's a totally different vibe too. Like, if you haven't read it, if it's kind of been on your back burner because it's not like along with the kind of main storyline of our Louis Lestat Armand crew, it's still worth a read. It's really fun.
Yeah, it's absolutely fun. And then the week after the Pandora episode, we're going to do a season 2, speculation episode and a lot of your questions. If you've got a burning question about the series or the books or us, if you want to know something, ask us on our Facebook page, on our YouTube page. There's a YouTube channel. There's a post up for that. If you'll post a comment, we'll talk about that week. And then
hell yeah,
we'll be into season 2 with our May 12th or May 13th release, depending upon when we're able to record. So, and that's another thing too. We've been on Saturday releases so far as we've done our rewatch for season 1. The show itself drops on Sunday mornings is my guess. And I don't think we're going to get a week ahead of time as we did with season 1. Do you? I can't imagine they're going to.
That would be. I think the whole reason with that was that they were really pushing AMC Plus. So I don't know. I don't know if that's still like if they're still trying to get people to sign up for that, or if I guess we'll see.
Well, it was also a brand new property, right? And I think they wanted to kind of like slow roll the word of mouth, and you had like your early adopters who'd be out there early on Saturday or Sunday talking about what a great episode.
Like us, the crazies.
Yeah, the crazies. Now, so with Mayfair, you have your AMC network airing on Sunday night, and it would drop early mornings on AMC Plus. So that is sort of what I'm imagining is we'll probably get them Sunday mornings.
It's going to be like that.
If so, we're going to try to record and have it out in time for airing on Sunday nights on the network itself. But we'll get to that bridge when we get to it. So in between here and there, you've got some stuff to look forward to. If you want to go ahead and watch Interview with the Vampire without our darling voices in your ear between here and there, go watch the 94 film. If you've never seen it, genuinely, it is a really, really good adaptation of this novel. And if that's all we had ever gotten, I think still people would talk about it fondly. The fact that we've now gotten a more true, lengthier adaptation is even better. But there ain't nothing wrong with that 94 movie, honestly.
No. I mean, except for, the things that are wrong with it, which I'm sure we'll discuss at length.
Yeah,
Brad Pitt doesn't eat food in this movie, so
I'm guessing we can find a bone or two to pick with it. You're probably right. All right. Until next week, Ashley, we've been your hosts. I'm Joel.
I'm Ashley.
And we are the Articulate Coven. Thanks for listening to The Articulate Coven. You can join our community on Facebook by following the links in the show notes or searching for Articulate Coven on Facebook. You can subscribe to the show in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or at articulatecoven.com. And share us with your Anne Rice-loving friends.